we're going to cover the load securing equipment that you might find on the Mod 4 test. During the test you might come across a load securing trolley similar to this one, and you may well be asked to demonstrate your ability to use a couple of bits of kit. So the first bit of kit we've got is a ratchet strap in two parts, the ratchet and the strap. We've got the chain and the chain ratchet. We've got a solid bar or tension bar, and ropes for tying dolly knots. So we'll start off with our ratchet strap. You can see the strap there on the left and the ratchet on the right. So the first thing we're going to do with our strap on our load securing trolley is to attach it to one end and make our way over the top of the trolley with the strap. This will be similar to going over the top of the load on a vehicle. We're then going to pass the strap through the ratchet, and the way we do that is to pass it through the slot in the centre of the barrel and then back on itself. The ratchet itself has got three positions: locked open, which is where it is now, a ratchet position in the centre, and locked closed. So we're going to feed that slack strap through the barrel there. We're going to pull that tension out, pull all the slack out the strap. Then we're going to remove the handle from the locked open position and start using the ratchet in order to tighten up the strap. Once it's nice and tight, you can see the barrel's turning there. Once it's nice and tight, we can then lock off that handle and we can then stow away the slack. In order to take the strap off, we do the direct opposite. So we push the handle open, which will allow the barrel to turn in the opposite direction, which will release the tension so we can remove the strap. If we slow that down a little bit, we just push the handle into the open position. Pushing back is going to push those two plates apart, which will allow the barrel to turn in the opposite direction. You can see the tension coming out of the strap there. And then once we've removed that tension, all we need to do is pull on the ratchet handle in order to remove the slack. So now we'll move on to the chain and the chain ratchet. So you've got the chain ratchet on the left there, chain on the right. A couple of things to note about the chain ratchet first is that we're fitted with two oppositely threaded bars which come out of a central barrel. And if you look at the centre of the barrel, you'll see a ratchet which is attached to a handle, which has got a catch on it, which will allow the ratchet to go in opposite direction. And depending whichever way you're rotating the barrel, we'll either pull those threaded bars closer towards the barrel or push them apart. And at either end, you've got a hook, which has got a pin in there to retain the chain link. So when we're using the chains, the first thing we're going to do is to attach one end of the chain to one side of our load securing trolley, which will be similar to attaching that to your vehicle. We're then going to go over the bars on the load securing trolley, again similar on your vehicle to going over a load, and attach the hook there. Remember that with chains they attach to points on the chassis only. The bed is certainly not strong enough. We remove any slack from the chain so it's nice and tight. We can then grab our chain ratchet. We then need to select a link at one end and hold that pin back while we put the chain link inside the hook. We're then going to pull the ratchet as tight as we can before holding the pin open and putting another link in at the other side. We then simply rotate the barrel using the ratchet, and as you can do that, you'll see that the chain will start to become tighter. You'll also start to feel the tension coming into the chain. And once the chain is nice and tight, all we need to do is leave the handle where it is. When we go to remove the tension from the chain, we flick over the catch on the ratchet so that we're ratcheting the other way, which lets us turn that barrel, and you'll see all that tension coming out the chain. Once all the tension's out the chain and we're nice and loose, we can then remove the hooks at either end, so pull the pins back and remove the chains from the hooks there. Really important to note that once we're finished using chains and chain ratchets, that they are stowed safely. They can't just be left on the bed. If they were to fall off the vehicle, they would certainly do quite a bit of damage. Onto the solid bar. So this bar is a ratchet bar. You'll notice it's got a black handle in the centre and you can see the teeth there. So the way we use this piece of equipment is obviously the version on your truck would be much larger. So we release that black handle in the centre there using a catch, and as we flip it over, it allows those teeth to be released to adjust the width of our bar, which on your vehicle is then adjusted to the width of the vehicle. Once you get the right adjustment, pull that black handle back over and you'll see the teeth are being pushed out in order to get it nice and tightly against either end of the vehicle. Once we go to release it, we just do the opposite. We just push back on that silver catch there to release the handle, and as we flip it over, it releases the teeth, which will allow us to release the bar. So now we'll move on to ropes, and what we need to demonstrate for the Mod 4 exam is our ability to tie a dolly knot. So what we do there is we hold the rope nice and tightly, we form a loop in our right hand and place it above the rope on the left. We're going to go around that loop twice with the rope in our left hand, and we're going to hold that nice and tightly. With the newly formed loop in our left hand, we're then going to twist that twice before taking the slack end of the rope through the loop. which is going to form another loop, which looks like a pulley, and it's that loop on the right that will fix to the vehicle. When you pull the rope, the knot should disappear if you've done it right. So let's show you that again. We're going to make the loop with the right hand and place it above the rope in the left hand. We're going to go around the loop twice with the rope in our left hand, forming a new loop, and that bottom loop is going to get twisted twice, and then the slack end of the rope taken through, forming our bottom loop. So another question that we need to also think about is, what is the correct equipment to use for securing a specific type of load onto a vehicle? So we need to consider a few things. So we've got the load weight. So that's the gross weight of the load, the packaging and the pallet as it's going onto the back of the vehicle. Need to think about dimensions, the size of the load. Is it going to go laterally on the vehicle, longitudinally, on top of a load or next to a load? Need to think about vehicle suitability. Have we selected the right vehicle? Is the bed in good condition? Are the anchor points in good condition? As well as looking at the vehicle VTG6 plate to make sure the vehicle is legally able to carry the size and weight of that load. And consideration of surface edges. Are there any edges on the load that is likely to be damaged by or cause damage to whatever load security device we're using? So with that in mind, let's have a look at pallets. So with pallets, with some boxes on there, for example, what do you think we'd use to secure that? So that's usually ratchet straps. So ratchet strap fixed to the bed of the vehicle and over the load. Just make sure there's no part of the load again that can damage the ratchet strap. So next one to think about, roll cages. So roll cages used in a box-sided vehicle. So they're all in there. What would you use to secure that one? So on that load, we're looking to use our tension bar or solid bar. So in this example, all of the cages are rolled up against the bulkhead in a box-sided vehicle, and the tension bar is put across the width to stop them rolling backwards. Good. What about sheet steel? So this photo is corrugated sheet steel. So how would we secure that one? So that would be with our chains and chain ratchets. Obviously a strap would be damaged by that load, so we need to put the chains on there, making sure the chains are attached to a strong point of the vehicle and that the chains aren't able to damage the load in the process. So what about engineering plant? So forklifts that might be loaded onto, for example, a flatbed lorry. So what would we use for that one? So that would be a chain and chain ratchet again. You can see there that the vehicle is sat on a flatbed lorry with the chain attached to a D-ring. That D-ring is actually attached to the chassis, and then the chain is gone round the vehicle being loaded and is secured by the chain ratchet. So now we need to look at the dynamic forces affecting a vehicle while we're driving and how the vehicle is likely to behave differently. So if we have a look at a vehicle there, you can see the front of the vehicle is shown at the top of the screen, and we then place a load onto our vehicle. For example, this might be a pallet or a cage or really any load that we have on a vehicle. We can then see that when we accelerate, we've got a forward force acting on the vehicle. We all know the magic trick of pulling the tablecloth out from under the glasses on the table. We don't want that to happen. So if we accelerate too harshly, that load's just going to want to move down the bed of the vehicle. Likewise, we also generate force when we're braking. So braking is a backwards force on the vehicle because it's slowing us down. If we generate too much of that backwards force, then the load's going to want to move forward. Braking will often generate one of the highest rates of force, highest rates of dynamic force whilst driving a vehicle. For that reason, the requirements for load security are 100% of the weight of the load forward and 50% of the load backwards or sideways. But it doesn't mean to say that cornering can't generate that force as well. So if we have a look at a vehicle that's going to go harshly round a left-hand bend there, you can see the arrow there. If we turn around that corner too harshly, all that's going to happen is the load is going to want to carry on. It's going to want to stay on its travelling path. So if we're driving in a straight line and we suddenly swerve left, the load wants to go straight on. If we're going right, suddenly the load again is going to want to go straight on. And it's for all those reasons that even once we're loaded and we're secured and we've put our security devices on, that we always need to drive being mindful of how our load is going to react to those dynamic forces.